Why in the world was that ever classified? We didn't witness what America has become so famous for, a peaceful, cooperative, well-wishing transition of power. Instead, we saw a corruption of that transition.
It is Wednesday, May 20th, and this is a Fox News alert. Another blow to the Obama administration's credibility thanks to a newly declassified email from Susan Rice.
And it comes as Michael Flynn's lawyers take his legal fight to the next level. We are live in Washington with what this all means and how it ties into the alleged deep state plot against the president.
Plus, America seeing light at the end of the tunnel with all 50 states open in some capacity today.
However, that milestone overshadowed by the controversy around chloroquine and the president taking it. How the White House is responding to a media frenzy.
Life hack.
Oh my gosh.
Did that really happen? Pop star Jason Derulo going viral for an internet challenge that has gone horribly wrong.
Why would you do that? Social media can't decide if he's for real or lying through his missing teeth. Fox and Friends First continues right now.
And good morning. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Wednesday morning. I'm Rob Schmidt.
And I'm Jillian Mealy. As always, thanks for starting your day with us. We begin with this Fox News alert. Michael Flynn's attorney filing an emergency appeal to boot Judge Emmett Sullivan from the case.
Yeah, this comes as a declassified email from Susan Rice suggests the Obama administration purposely withheld information from Michael Flynn.
Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with reaction from President Trump. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Jane and Rob. Let's dive right in. Now, much of this Rice email that she sent herself on Inauguration Day was already declassified, but this newly released portion describes then FBI Director James Comey cautioning President Obama on passing information to then incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Rice wrote this. Comey said he does have some concerns that incoming NSA Flynn is speaking frequently with Russian Ambassador Kislyak. Comey said that could be an issue as it relates to sharing sensitive information. President Obama asked if Comey was saying that the NSC should not pass sensitive information related to Russia to Flynn. Rice says Comey replied, quote, potentially. At the White House, President Trump had this reaction.
What the Democrats did and the dirty cops, they're dirty cops. They were crooked. Bad people. They broke the law. What they've done to General Flynn should never happen. What they've done to the presidency and what they've done to this country can never be allowed to happen again to our country.
The move to declassify just the latest action by acting DNI Rick Grenell, complying with a request from Senator Ron Johnson, rejected yesterday the notion that this was in any way political.
And that's what they're shooting for. Information that is not politicized by politicians in any way on any side of the aisle.
A representative for Rice issued this statement saying Ambassador Rice did not alter the way she briefed Michael Flynn on Russia as a result of Director Comey's response. Meanwhile, in the Flynn case, his attorney, Sidney Powell, is asking a federal appeals court to order Judge Sullivan to immediately grant the government's motion to dismiss the case in seeking his removal from the case.
The law is clear. He doesn't have authority to grant it. He can't appoint a prosecutor himself. The case is over, and his bias is so egregious he should be removed from the case.
As it stands, until the federal appeals court responds, Sullivan has set oral arguments for July. In all this, as more requests for unmasking names comes from Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham. So a few more chapters to this story for sure. Rob, Jillian?
Yeah, something tells me this is not over soon. Griff, thank you.
All right, today Connecticut joins the rest of the nation in phasing back to business.
This as President Trump gives his administration permission to cut red tape in the way of an economic restart.
Todd Pyro is live as all 50 states are officially on the road to recovery. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Jillian. Good morning to both of you. A big milestone as now each state in our country is headed down the long road back to economic normalcy, including taking our first steps right here in Connecticut.
We've hit those metrics. We're exceeding those metrics. I think we can proceed on a very thoughtful basis with those businesses that are least likely to be dangerous and most likely to have a real economic value for the state.
That was Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont joining Connecticut in some phase of reopening today. Delaware, Kentucky, New Jersey, and New York. This as Georgia Governor Brian Kemp celebrates some positive stats in his state, tweeting, quote, "Today marks the lowest number of COVID-19 positive patients hospitalized in Georgia at 986. That's down 34% since May 1st. These numbers are encouraging, but we must remain vigilant in our efforts to fight this virus." But while Georgia celebrates, California gets scolded. The DOJ writing a scathing warning to Governor Gavin Newsom for his limits on churches that reads in part, quote, "Simply put, there is no pandemic exception to the U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights. Laws that do not treat religious activities equally with comparable non-religious activities are subject to heightened scrutiny under the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment." The governor accused of allowing schools, restaurants, factories, offices, and shopping malls to open more broadly than houses of worship. Meantime, at the White House, two big moves by the president. One announcing a $19 billion coronavirus food assistance program to support farmers and ranchers. And two, announcing an executive order aimed at making hundreds of deregulations permanent, a massive overhaul of regulation policy.
I'm also instructing agencies to use the emergency authorities to speed up regulation cuts or new rules that will create jobs and prosperity and get rid of unnecessary rules and regulations.
The president going on to highlight the importance of the nation's food supply chain, specifically bringing the entire supply chain back from China. Robin Jillian, back to you.
Sounds good. Todd, thank you.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says unemployment money will only go to Americans who truly need it.
If you offer back a worker and they don't take that job, you will be required to notify the local unemployment insurance agency because that person will no longer be eligible for unemployment.
After lawmakers increased jobless benefits due to COVID-19, many individuals were able to collect more on unemployment than they made on the job. Republican lawmakers have expressed concern the added benefit would keep Americans from returning to work.
President Trump and the VA secretary pushing back on a study warning that hydroxychloroquine could be deadly for COVID-19 patients.
There was a false study. It was given by obviously not friends of the administration. It was a Trump enemy statement.
Department of Defense and VA have been using it for 65 years. On any given day, VA uses 42,000 doses of this drug.
A Veterans Health Administration study found the anti-malaria drug had no effect treating COVID-19 and could even cause heart complications in certain people. The president insisted that those in the study were extremely sick and very close to death. He's taking the drug as a, quote, line of defense against COVID-19.
Attorneys confirm there is a second video showing the deadly shooting of Ahmaud Arbery back in February. The clip reportedly shows a different angle of the incident, but will not be released until the trial begins. Travis and Gregory McMichael are accused of murdering Arbery while he was jogging. They claim they thought he was a burglar. Meanwhile, newly surfaced video from 2017 shows Arbery being arrested by Georgia police in a Walmart parking lot. Court records show Arbery pleaded guilty to trying to steal a TV.
Extreme weather now, and a state of emergency declared overnight after two dams, look at this, collapse in central Michigan. Just a flood happening there. Thousands of people ordered to evacuate immediately in Midland County. The governor warning one city could be under 9 feet of water by this morning.
Wow, the dam's giving way after days of heavy rain. Governor Gretchen Whitmer calling in the National Guard for help.
This is unlike anything we've ever seen before, but this truly is a historic event that is playing out in the midst of another historic event.
Yeah, this is a tricky situation. Officials are now working to screen people that are pouring into shelters because of the flood as they try to avoid the spread of COVID-19.
Senior meteorologist Janice Dean joins us live as several flood warnings are in effect. This looks really, really dire there, Janice.
Yeah, they've received 3 to 8 inches of rain in mid-Michigan over the last week or so. And flash flood warnings are in effect for Midland, as you mentioned, and Sterling, where we have at least 2 rivers reaching major flood stage. So that's going to be an issue throughout the day. And flooding is going to be the main story, not only for Michigan, but as we go southward across portions of the Ohio Valley, also the mid-Atlantic, western portions of North Carolina and South Carolina, because we have something called a cutoff low. And what that means is we have this area of low pressure that isn't moving. It's just stationary because it has nothing to push it offshore. So you've got Arthur's remnants, you've got all of this tropical moisture and this low that's going to sit and spin for several days. And in some of these areas, we could see 6 to 12 inches of rainfall in just a matter of a day or so. So 2 areas we're watching this morning. Certainly Michigan and parts of the mid-Atlantic, the Appalachians and the Carolinas, the Western Carolinas, where flooding is going to be a major concern over the next couple of days. Rob and Jillian, back to you.
Yeah, nothing to move that rain out of the way. That's scary stuff. Janice, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right.
All right, today NASCAR holding its second race this week at Darlington Raceway. Drivers restarted their engines in front of empty stands Sunday after the season was put on pause due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Heavy rain, though, threatens tonight's Toyota 500K. NASCAR changing its start time and hopes that this race won't get washed out.
And you can catch the race at 6 o'clock Eastern on Fox Sports.
More NASCAR. All right.
Operational powers issue under the Constitution, and the law is clear. He doesn't have authority to grant it. The case is over.
Fox News alert: 15 Republican state attorneys general joining Michael Flynn's legal team and calling on the judge in this case to accept the dismissal.
Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost is leading the charge, and he joins us live now. Sir, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jillian. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. So you're leading this group. You co-wrote this brief. Tell us why and tell us what's in it.
Well, fundamentally, this is a separation of powers problem. The decision to bring a citizen before a court belongs solely to the executive branch, and having decided that this was not a righteous prosecution, the prosecution side, the judge doesn't have any right to second guess that.
Let's take a look at this declassified Susan Rice email from right around the inauguration of President Trump. President Obama asked if Comey was saying that the NSC should not pass sensitive information related to Russia to Michael Flynn. Comey replied, potentially. He added that he has no indication thus far that Flynn has passed classified information to Sergei Kislyak, but he noted that the level of communication is unusual. Now, the Democrats are focusing on the last part of that the level of communication is unusual, that we had just placed sanctions on Russia. Why is Flynn talking to Kislyak this much? What do you make of that email there?
Well, it's part of a troubling record that really shows that the government didn't have clean hands when they started this investigation. And that's part of the reason I think that the Attorney General has ultimately decided that this is not a righteous prosecution, and that the untruthfulness, such as it is, was not material, as lawyers say. Doesn't support a prosecution.
Here's a response from Rice's team, and this is, quote, Ambassador Rice's email makes clear no discussion of law enforcement matters or investigations took place, despite accusations to the contrary. Your thoughts on that and your response?
Again, this is just part of the foundation that didn't exist. The government shouldn't be allowed to just call a citizen in and interview them for no reason. Or without a good reason, without a nexus to a crime. To hold otherwise is to just allow an unlimited fishing license.
Yeah, there's two sides of this, obviously, sir. I mean, you have Republicans saying that the whole case here and that the judge, Emmett Sullivan, is partisan. You have Democrats saying that Bill Barr's recommendation to drop this thing is partisan. Tell us why people should believe you.
Well, look, I understand that there's two sides to every story, but the Constitution places the responsibility for this decision with the prosecutor. State attorneys general are the chief law officers of their states, their executive officers, they're the ones that make decisions about whether to bring the case or not. The end of the day, when the judge gets off the bench and tries to go sit at the prosecution table, the judge is forfeiting that impartiality that we need in the constitutional system. You can't sit at the prosecution table and on the bench. I don't think that this can go forward constitutionally.
Sir, with a lot of things lately, I feel like, things spiral and different sides take away different things that they want to see from every scenario. And I feel like nothing is coming to a close. Do you think that we're going to get these answers? Do you think that this is going to come to an actual close at any point soon?
Any point soon? Not too soon. The judge put on a briefing deadline that extends into June. So we've got at least a few weeks of this to go. But yeah, we'll get to a place where there's a decision, probably an appeal. Maybe there was a mandamus action filed in Court of Appeals yesterday by Mr. Flynn's teams. Look, at the end of the day, everybody ought to be concerned about this. Whether you like or dislike William Barr's decision, the executive branch, through the president, is going to have to answer the people this fall for that and the rest of the record. But whether you like it or dislike it, you should be for the constitutional limitation that says judges don't get to climb off the bench and go sit down at the prosecution table.
Okay. Dave Yost, Attorney General of the State of Ohio, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It is 20 minutes after the hour. Former President Barack Obama looked thrilled to see this painting unveiled at the Smithsonian a few years back, but partisan posturing may derail his official portrait ceremony at the White House.
Also, lawmakers in Seattle following California's lead, the staggering amount of cash the city wants to set aside for illegal immigrants. Coming up.
Unanimously passing a resolution asking Washington's governor to give taxpayer money to immigrants who didn't get stimulus checks last month. California created a $75 million fund for illegals earlier this week. The application site was so busy, it crashed.
All right, CVS returning more than $43 million in stimulus funding. The drugstore giant says it didn't ask for the money and that it could be better used somewhere else. It's a good move. The money was automatically given to Medicare providers, which includes CVS Minute clinics.
But in a Fox News exclusive, the federal government is demanding dozens of Planned Parenthood affiliates return $80 million in stimulus funds.
This as Democrats grill the Treasury Secretary and the Fed chair on coronavirus relief efforts. Marianne Rafferty is live with the very latest developments this morning. Hey, Marianne.
Hey, Rob and Jillian. Well, a total of $80 million went to 37 Planned Parenthood affiliates. That was money that was meant to help small businesses struggling to stay afloat and pay employees. Senator Marco Rubio calling on Planned Parenthood to give it all back, saying in part there is no ambiguity in the legislation that passes or public record around its passage that organizations such as Planned Parenthood, whose parent organization has close to $500 million in assets, is not eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. Those funds must be returned immediately. Rubio goes on to say the SBA should open an investigation into how these loans were made in clear violation of the applicable affiliation rules. And if Planned Parenthood, the banks, or staff at the SBA knowingly violated the law. Now, the largest single loan was $7.5 million. That was to Planned Parenthood of Orange and San Bernardino County in California. The CEO of Planned Parenthood made it clear last year it would not accept any federal help, saying in a statement, quote, Planned Parenthood is never going to allow the Trump-Pence administration to bully us into withholding critical health information from our patients. Meanwhile, Democrats grilled Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell over how funds from the PPP are being used. Senator Elizabeth Warren accusing the administration of using the bailout to help their Wall Street friends. Now, the SBA is in the process of sending letters to Planned Parenthood affiliates demanding that money back, saying it should have known the organization was too big to qualify in the first place. Rob, Jillian?
All right, Marianne Rafferty live for us. Thank you.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour, the owners of a salon joining the growing rebellion against tough restrictions in the state of New Jersey.
These determined small business owners are setting their own date to reopen, and they have a legal team on standby. They join us live next.
Out of China, where more than 100 million people face new lockdown restrictions amid fears about a possible second wave of COVID-19. These restrictions being put into place in the northeast part of the country that has seen a spike in new cases of coronavirus after reopening weeks ago. While the cluster of new cases stands at just 34, authorities aren't taking any chances. Schools are closed again, and public transportation in the area has grounded to a halt. The source of the original coronavirus outbreak in China is still being studied, and now the World Health Organization does appear to be on board with launching an independent investigation. At the group's annual World Health Assembly, member states, including China, agreed to support an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. It's important to note that China is still not allowing international investigators the needed access to a lab in the city of Wuhan, where the outbreak may have started. Now House Republicans in Washington are calling for hearings into the coronavirus outbreak and testimony from the WHO chief. The WHO did double down this week on their position, saying they have been transparent throughout the process.
As always, WHO remains fully committed to transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement. We want accountability more than anyone.
Remember, just 4 months ago, the World Health Organization tweeted that Chinese authorities found no evidence of coronavirus transmission from human to human. Now, nearly 5 million people around the world have been infected. Rob, Jillian?
All right, Trey Ying's live for us with that update. Thank you, Trey.
New Jersey business owners left with more questions than answers over their governor's roadmap for reopening.
The curve continues to move in the right direction. The only surefire cure available right now for COVID-19 is to not get it. And that means maintaining social distancing. It is a time for us to double down.
All right, but this New Jersey salon's owners say they have had enough, announcing their business will reopen on the 1st of June, defying the governor's current restrictions. The owners of Brick and Mirror Beauty Bar, George Vertis and Nick Mirabella, joined me live this morning to talk about this plan. Guys, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. What is the plan come June 1st?
So June 1st, the plan is just to reopen. I mean, we have no set guidelines by the governor as of right now, so we're going to create our own. We're going to take leadership for our salon industry, and we're going to open up with strict guidelines, cleanliness, different restrictions on how many people can enter the building. We're going to have PPE equipment for our staff, as well as for any clients that come in. We'll have a bunch of masks for them, and we're going to leave a 15-minute gap from one client to the next so we can actually sanitize our tools and our station. Yeah, and disinfect everything, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what you got to do, and it sounds like you're trying to do it the safe, right way. If we look at what is reopening in New Jersey this month, according to the governor at this point, parks and golf courses have been open, construction, curbside pickup just opening up, automobile, motorcycle dealerships, bike shops are going to be reopening here, well, today, and then the beaches, the lakes, outdoor activities opening here in a couple of days. Nick, I want to ask, what does it feel like, to have a business like this and to look at that list and for the governor to say, all of these places can open. You can go buy a Harley Davidson, but you still can't go to your business. Does it feel like an arbitrary decision?
Yeah, I just feel it's just ridiculous. How does one business get approved and considered essential, but not another? Like, what is his guidelines? He never told us why he's opening those up or why they're okay to open up, but we can't open up. So in our industry, we're also very well equipped with cleanliness and sanitation. We went through schooling for this. Pretty much 90% of what we learn in school is about sanitation. So in our industry, we can spread disease whether COVID-19 is prevalent or not. The flu season happens every year. So we take precautions every year to stop spreading disease and viruses.
Yeah. George, tell me about, you went out and you started a business. You did what is the hardest thing to do in this country, to not take a job, but to go make one yourself. Tell me about what it took to open this place up, the blood and the sweat and the tears that went into this to now be closed down. Tell us about that.
For me, it hits home because it's, I don't know if anyone out there knows, but it's a generational business. My grandfather, my father, my uncle, my aunt, my great-grandparents, they all started it. And then Nick and I, in 2014, we partnered up and made it what it is today. And it seemed as if, because of the governor's, actions or none thereof, I should say, it's being taken away from us as we speak. We're going on 2.5 months of being closed right now. And like I've said before in the past, enough is enough. we've had it, and we have to.
An executive order should last 30 days, or that's pretty much what I understand it should last.
Yeah.
So if you keep on tacking on 30 more days, it's just getting to the point where when's it going to end?
Yeah.
So
we don't have a clear-cut day on when we can open. So we took it upon ourselves, following the right guidelines, like Nick said before, and we're going to open June 1st.
And this isn't just for us. There's a lot of other salons. I mean, people reach out to George.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to open well.
I can only imagine the frustration. I mean, when something like this is taken out of your hands, it's got to be so frustrating. Guys, we wish you the best of luck. We know your primary overnight. The presumptive Democrat nominee clinching 70% of the vote as results continue to come in, while gaining 43 delegates. Biden's latest victory comes as he vets potential running mates. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer says she talked with the Biden campaign. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham also reportedly being vetted as well. The two are among the dozen women rumored to be under consideration. Biden hopes to announce his decision of a woman by July.
Turning to a Fox Business alert, Pier 1 Imports will close all of its stores months after filing for bankruptcy.
Cheryl Casoni from our sister network Fox Business here as the pandemic claims another business. Cheryl.
It does, guys. Good morning. Another name falling as Pier 1 Imports is closing its doors for good. All 540 stores in the United States will be shut down. Of course, this is a company that's known for their love beads, their scented candles, their beanbag chairs, that wicker phase they had in the 90s. Pier 1 opened actually back up in 1962. At the height of its popularity, they had about 1,200 stores, but Pier 1 was already in Chapter 11, as you mentioned. They filed back in February. They were trying to reorganize themselves, already closing all their Canadian stores. There will be a going out of business sale once the stores can reopen their doors. By the way, we've seen JCPenney, Neiman's file for bankruptcy during the pandemic. Hopefully they don't meet the same end that Pier 1 is as of yesterday.
And there could be some trouble for museums as well, right?
Yeah, they could be permanently closing a lot of them. It is possible that nearly 13% of the museums around the world may never reopen. That's the word from UNESCO and the International Council of Museums. They're warning about 1 in 8 museums worldwide could close due to the financial strains of the coronavirus shutdown. Roughly 90% of the 85,000 museums across the world have actually been shut down, but it's not just loss of revenue. A lot of these guys are worried about how they're going to socially distance visitors within the museums. 4 museums in Berlin have reopened, by the way. About half of the amount of visitors they usually would have come through the door since those 4 museums in Berlin have opened. But most museums worldwide at this point are still pretty much shut down, and I think they're going to have to figure out how they can bring in people safely, because the fun thing about a museum is you just wander around and go wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Even if you're not supposed to go there, you still go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Cheryl Casoni, thank you.
Momentum growing in Washington to treat China as a true adversary. Beijing's failure to alert the world about COVID-19 has drawn a lot of ire from President Trump. A lot of things they've done with this virus. Ohio Congressman Steve Chabot says China is not our friend and a sea change is in order. He joins us live coming up.
But first, time to check in with Brian Kilmeade to see what's coming up on Fox and Friends. Good morning, Brian.
Hey guys, thanks, and thanks for the music, which means I'm going to go to break right after this, so this might be goodbye, and then I'll come back a little bit later dressed in the same outfit. Not forever, absolutely. Hey, Senator Marco Rubio is going to be on with us. He's the new chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He's going to be talking about this 75-25 split with the PPP program. Is the Secretary of Treasury going to give in on this? A lot of small businesses are not going to take it if that is not indeed the case. Acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf doing a great job. He's going to be joining us talking about our new rules when it comes to the border and more. Lawrence Jones will be here, talk about so many things. Dr. Nicole Sapphire on hydroxychloroquine. I don't know if you heard, but there's a little bit of a controversy with the president taking it. Brett Tolman on the latest with Michael Flynn. They're trying to take this crazy judge and toss him out and toss out the entire case and let Michael Flynn's life get on with it, and we'll see what happens there. And we're talking to some small business owners today as they fight to reopen and make a living before they go out of business. Time is not